Study section 5. Vision 1. Introduction. The processes of sensation and perception lie at the root of our experience of being alive, serving as the foundation for most of what we know and do. If we cannot sense the world, then for all practical purposes, it does not exist for us. If we sense it incorrectly, our world will be bent and distorted. To understand mental processes and behavior, therefore, we must understand how our senses allow us to make contact with the world. Objectives. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to 1. Explain visual, sensation and perception. 2. Describe the anatomy of the eye. 3. Describe color vision. And 4. Identify visual problems. Contents. Visual perception. Visual perception is not accomplished in one fell swoop, but in two broad phases. First, visual sensations are invoked by an object or event. Second, you actually perceive the stimulus perception occur when you have organized and interpreted the sensory inputs as signaling a particular object or event. Sensations. Psychologists define sensation as the registration of properties of an object or event that occurs when a type of receptors, such as those at the back of the eye, in the air, on the skin, is stimulated. Sensation arises when enough physical energy strikes a sense organ so that receptors cells send neural impulses to the brain. Receptors in general are like locks which are opened by the appropriate key. For sensory receptors, the appropriate physical energy or molecules serves as the key. In the study of vision, the entire cells that responds to physical stimulation is called a receptor, and not just the parts that register the input. It is the signals that are sent by these receptors that cause you to become aware of the outside world. Visual sensation arises in the eye and in the first part of the brain that register visual inputs. Perceptions. Perception relies on two phases of processing. Ma, 1982. Nakayama et al., 1995. 1. Organization into coherent units. You don't see isolated blobs and lines, you see surfaces and objects. At the outset, you must organize patches of color, texture, edges, and other basic visual elements into coherent units, which usually correspond to surfaces and objects, such as the haystacks in a Monet painting. As part of this process, you need to register the sizes and locations of objects. 2. Identifying what and where. But these surfaces and objects don't have meaning. They are just surfaces and forms. The processes that organize the inputs are a prelude to the final task of perception, which is to recognize and identify what you see, to realize you're seeing a haystack and not a honeycomb. In addition to identifying what the object is, you need to identify where in space an object is, so you can get into your car when it is parked but avoid cars when crossing the streets. The sense of vision, sight, is one of the 5 classical senses, which assumes greater importance than any other sensory system. This is so because we obtain more information about our environment in what we see than what we hear or smell. The brain is also related to vision activities than other activities of sensory perception. The eye is the organ of the sense of sight. The human eye. The human eye is roughly a sphere with a diameter just under an inch, similar to a small ping pong ball. The white of the eye or sclera provides a tough outer covering that helps the fluid-filled eyeball maintain its shape. Eyes are located in the bony orbit of the skull, which can deflect many blows. In addition, the eye is cushioned for support and protection by fat. When people are starved, they show a characteristic hollowed eye look due to the loss of this important fat cushion. The orbital cavity is almost spherical in shape and is about 2.5 centimeters in diameter. The eye is also protected by the eyelids. The eyelid can be opened and closed either voluntarily or involuntarily. Involuntary closure of the eyelids or a blink protects the eye from incoming objects. In addition, blinks moisten and clean the front of the eye. A tear is another feature of the eye's protective system. Tears are primarily produced in the lacrimal glands at the outer corner of each eye. The fluid is composed of water and salt and it also contains glucose protein and substances that kill bacteria. Tears flush away dusty and debris and moisten the eye so that the eyelids don't scratch the surface during blinks. When we cry in response to any emotional events, the composition of these tears is somewhat different. The anatomy of the eye. Structurally, the two eyes are so separate but unlike the ears. Some of their activities are so coordinated so that they function as a pair. It is possible to see with only one eye, but three-dimensional vision is impaired when only one eye is used, especially in relation to distance. There are three layers of tissue of the eye. The outer fibrous layer is made of sclera and cornea. The middle vascular layer or uveal tract is made of choroid, cilia, body and iris. The inner nervous tissue is made of retina. The structures inside the eyeball are the lens, aqueous fluid or humor, and vitreous fluid or humor. The choroids. The choroid is deep chocolate brown in color. Light enters the pupil and stimulates the nerve ending in the retina. It is then absorbed by the choroid. The choroid is very rich in blood vessels. The ciliary body. This consists of muscles and secretory epithelial cells. The contraction and relaxation of the ciliary muscle change the thickness of the lens, which bends or refracts light rays entering the eye to focus them on the retina. The epithelial cells secrete aqueous into the anterior chamber of eye. Anatomy of the eye. Light enters the eye through an opening called the pupil. Surrounding the pupil is a circular muscle called the iris. The iris. This is the circular muscle that adjusts the size of the pupil. The iris changes the size of the pupils to let in more or less light. The cornea. This is a transparent covering over the eye, which serves partly to focus the light onto the back of the eye. The lens. The light is also focused by the lens, unlike a camera lens. The lens in a human eye flexes. The muscles can adjust the lens into a more or less round shape to focus light from objects that are different distances away. Accommodation. Accommodation is the automatic adjustment of the eye for seeing at particular distances. This occurs when muscles change the shape of the lens so that it focuses light on the retina from near or far away objects. The world appears sharp and clear because we are constantly moving our eyes and what we choose to look at can quickly be brought into focus. With age, the lens thickens and becomes less flexible. Fat and Waste Man, 1992. Often causing older people to have trouble seeing nearer objects, such as reading material. Retina. This is a sheet of tissue at the back of the eye containing cells that convert light to neural impulses. This tissue is almost as thick as a piece of paper. Wazel, 2004. The central part of the retina contains densely packed cells that transform light to nerve impulses, and this region is called the fovea. In the retina, there are two kinds of cells which are important for converting light to nerve impulses. They are the rod and cones. Fovea. The fovea gives us the sharpest images. We are not usually aware of how fuzzy our words look. Most of the time, we notice only the images that strike the fovea, which are sharp and clear, but much of what we see is in fact not very sharply focused. The fovea is the small central region of the retina with high density of cones and the highest resolution. Rods. This is a cell found in the retina. They look like little rods and are extraordinarily sensitive to light, but they only allow us to see shades of gray. Each eye contains between 100 million and 120 million rods. These rod-shaped retina cells are very sensitive to light, but register only shades of gray. Cones. This is a cell found in the retina. They look like cones. They are not as sensitive to light as the rods. They are of three types, and each of the three types of cones respond most rigorously to a particular wavelength. They are of three types, and each of the three types of cones respond most rigorously to a particular wavelength of light, which allows us to see color. Each eyes contain between 5 million and 6 million cones. Belting, 1995. Dowling, 1992. The cones are densest near the fovea, but the rods are everywhere within the retina except in the fovea. In very dim light, there isn't enough light for the less light-sensitive cones to work, so night vision is based on the firing of the rods alone. That is why a red apple looks black and an orange cat looks gray under a moonlight night sky. Cone-shaped retina cells respond most strongly to one of three wavelengths of light. The combined output from cones that are most sensitive to different wavelengths plays a key role in producing color vision. The rods allow us to see with less light, but not in color. The cones allow us to see colors, but are not as light sensitive as the rods. Optic nerve. These are a large bundle of nerve fibers carrying impulses from the retina into the brain. The optic nerve is almost as quick as your little finger. There is no rod or cones at the place where the optic nerve exists in the retina, which causes a blind spot in what you can see, laid out in front of you, because the brain completes patterns that fall across this blind spot. You are not aware of it as you look around every day. Transduction. The eye converts the electromagnetic energy that is light into nerve impulses. This conversion process is called transduction. The critical step in transduction occurs at the retina. Dark adaptation. This is the process whereby exposure to darkness causes the eye to become more sensitive, allowing for better vision in the dark. When you first enter a darkened theater, you can't see a thing. You may have noticed, though, that the risk of tripping or bumping into someone is a lot less if you wait for a brief time, because you soon can see much better. In fact, after 30 minutes in the dark, you are about 100,000 times more sensitive to light than you are during full daylight. In ideal conditions, the rod can respond when they receive a single photon, the smallest unit of light. This process is called dark adaptation. Parts of the increased sensitivity to what light there is arises because your pupil enlarges when you are in darkness. In fact, it can expand to let in about 16 times as much light as enters into full daylight. In addition, the rods actually become more sensitive as your eyes remain in the dark because your gene causes the production of a crucial chemical called rhodopsin that responds to light. Because of the way the rods are arranged on the retina, if you want to see best at night, look slightly to the side of what you want to examine. Freeberg, 2006. Circadian behavior. This is a behavior that follows the daily pattern of light, such as walking and sleeping. Bassin and colleagues, 2002, found that certain ganglion cells in the retina respond to illumination in just the right way to the observed effect of light and behavior. Thus, rods and cones are not the whole story. We have not 2 but 3 kinds of cells that transduce light into neural impulses. End of study section 5. Thanks for listening.